Dusk leaned over Ash Fork like a lid slowly closing. A single wagon moved along the east road with drills stenciled on the side. Dust rose behind it like breath on glass. In the schoolhouse window, the telegraph sounder tapped fast. The white knot on the bell rope glowed in the last light. On the fort porch, Lieutenant Pike read a fresh strip and did not like its smell. Some wars are printed first. Clara Vale stood by the bell rope with one hand at rest and one hand ready. She remembered dragging fear into sunlight and making it speak. She remembered rifles lowering and Nokoni counting 3 breaths and living. Peace had held, but peace can be thin at the edges. The strip in Pike's hand said, "Vacate treaty position, seize messenger for security." It wore the right code marks. It wore the fort seal, but it walked with the wrong steps. Clara did not hear the double click a careful sergeant always made before numerals. She heard a space and another where none belonged. Hale's clerk had a habit like that. Pike folded the paper once, twice, buying time with creases. He looked at the captain. The captain looked at the town. The town looked at the knot. Nokoni sat on a chair by the school door, a blanket over his knees, eyes steady. War Chief Tiva stood beside him with his bow unstrung and his hands open. Riders waited beyond the fence without paint. The preacher held the talking stick token like a small lantern. Clara took the slate from the desk and wrote the day's plain truth. 3 of 4. She drew a small box and shaded 3. She left one empty and circled it. The last wagon was the hole the story kept falling into. A stable boy ran up with a metal plate wrapped in a rag. "Drop by the feed store," he said. "Looked Army." Clara wiped the plate. The letters matched the crate stencils, but one serif was tipped wrong, like a tooth set crooked. "Not Army forged." She showed it to the captain. He set it next to the strip. "Someone wants us to move at night," he said. "Someone wants us to move the wrong way." Pike's mouth was a hard line. "If this is real and we ignore it, we lose the fort," he said. "If it is false and we obey, we lose the treaty." "Daylight is our fence," Clara said. "Read nothing new unless the town can hear it said." The sounder tapped again. A short, careful hand. Weather. "Okay. Line clear east." Clara felt the cadence like footfalls she trusted. She wrote under the shaded boxes, "Read orders in daylight only." The captain nodded. "We hold to that," he said. He turned to Pike. "Split and watch. But we do not seize the boy. We keep witnesses around our choices." Clara walked to the fence and looked along the road where dusk stacked itself in blue layers. Far off, dust lifted again, thin and mean, as if a horse trotted just out of sight. A wagon sings a different note when loaded with brass. She listened for the duller drum under the squeak. She went back inside and laid out 3 things for the night. The slate with 3 of 4. The crooked stencil plate. The talking stick token. Proof likes company. She tied a second white strip to a short hand line and looped the line over a porch nail. If she pulled twice, May and Eli would walk to any wagon under a tarp and lift the canvas. If she pulled 3 times, all guns would lower. They had agreed on that when the town chose daylight. May brought a lantern and set it low. "We will walk behind you," she said. "Slow feet, steady hands." Eli checked his rope. "Cutter has men at Mesquite Narrows," he said. "The draw is tight. A wagon can jam the pass and make tempers stupid." "The pass will hear our words before it hears our shots," Clara said. The preacher folded a hymn and slid it into his coat. "I will read anything new out loud," he said. "So lies must speak without shade." Clara touched the knot, the plate, the token, the slate. 4 small anchors. Inside, the sounder settled to a slow breath. The wagon on the east road kept coming. The town, which had learned to be witnesses, kept its eyes open and its hands where everyone could see. Clara whispered one promise so she would hear it when the dark pressed close. "We will not trade silence for safety," she said. "Not again." Peace would be tested again soon. Then she stepped into the evening, and the white knot caught the last line of sun and held it. The town woke to a careful mourning. Ash Fork moved as if each step might speak too loudly. Women set bread to rise with doors open. Men fixed rails and watched the east road between hammer blows. Children carried water and peeked at the white knot on the bell rope. The knot looked simple. Everyone knew it now. It meant daylight first. Clara laid the slate on the school desk and drew the math again. 3 shaded boxes, 1 open. She wrote, 3 of 4. Beside it, she chalked, "Read brands in the sun." She set the crooked stencil plate by the slate and ran a finger over the wrong serif. It felt like a burr in wood. The preacher came with tea. He saw the plate and nodded. "We will read it out loud," he said. "No more orders in shadows." They stood and watched a thin dust thread hum toward the creek bend. Pike crossed the yard with the captain. Their talk was short. Pike lifted the forged strip and spoke for all to hear. "We hold in daylight. No seizure, no chains. If orders change, we read them where the town stands." The sentence settled people. War Chief Tiva stopped at the door. He set a palm on the desk beside the plate. "We ride beside you," he said. "You will not find us behind masks or paint." His eyes went to Nokoni, who sat straighter today. The boy made the 3-breath sign and smiled. Clara answered with 3 fingers. A small exchange that lifted the room. May brought 2 of her girls. Their faces were calm, their hands rope-tough. "We will lift the canvas if you pull twice," May said. "We will keep our voices plain." Eli came with a coil and a hammer. "If Cutter jams the narrows, I can brace an axle and freeze his wheel," he said. "No shot needed." Clara placed them like pieces on a board, May by the gate, Eli near the sheds. The girls split at the opening so no one man could block them. Near noon, the captain called a short council in the open. People made a half circle and left a path clear. The preacher held the talking stick where all could see it. The captain spoke. "Hale sits under lock," he said. "His shooter named a ranch foreman to the east. We have proof of forged stock and stolen rounds, but 1 wagon is missing." He pointed to the slate. "We will not guess in the dark." Pike raised his hand. "I will take 2 soldiers and watch the ridge," he said. "If a decoy runs toward the rail, I will not chase it out of sight," Tiva answered at once. "We will ride the creek bed to the narrows," he said. "It keeps quieter than the ridge," Clara added. "I will walk the road with May and the preacher and a lantern. If anything new is read, he will read it to the air, and the air will carry it to every ear." A rancher stepped forward with a sour look. "What if the boy runs while you do all this talking?" Tiva turned and placed the talking stick on Nokoni's knee. The boy set his hand on it and looked at the rancher without fear. "I will be here when you return," he said. The rancher had nothing more to say. Clara tied the second white strip to the field handline and tested its pull. Twice to reveal the wagon, 3 to lower guns. The preacher tucked a hymn under his belt and practiced 1 sentence. "Read the order in daylight." He would say it until the shout got tired. The wire clicked a small weather note and then went still. The town ate early, bread and beans, apples split for children. Nokoni slept and woke easily. Tiva checked his cinch and left it loose so his horse would not sour. Pike snapped his pistol shut and left it there. The captain rolled his map and tucked it under his arm. Clara wrote 1 more line for the children to copy later. "Witness is a job, not a mood." She looked at the knot and felt calm arrive, not from luck, but from tasks done in order. When the sun began to slide, the plan stood like a clean fence. Pike to the ridge, Tiva to the creek, Clara to the road, May to the gate, Eli to the sheds, the preacher between them all with words like nails. The last wagon could still try to make a war out of silence. But Ash Fork had learned how to make silence speak. They moved to their places, no cheer. Only a town's steady feet. Dusk touched the bell, and the knot quietly shone again, just sure. The guardhouse smelled of damp wood and metal. A lamp burned low. The shooter sat with his hat in his hands. Pike stood where everyone could see him. The preacher set a paper on a stool. Clara held a slate. "We speak in daylight," the preacher said. "Say who sent you and where." "Cutter," the man answered. "Ranch foreman to the east. Mesquite Narrows. He pays for tarps and ropes and men who can climb. He said a ridge torch would draw you, and the real wagon would take the canyon. He said the boy would be taken if people shouted." Pike's face did not change. "Who gave you the rifle?" "From the quartermaster's cart, the chest under the tarp," the man said. "The cook knocked it from me." He looked ashamed. The cook said nothing. Clara wrote clean, Cutter. Mesquite Narrows, ridge torch, real wagon in the canyon. "Cart chest, did you carry a message?" the preacher asked. A strip to the clerk, the man said. I saw the seal, but there were 2 spaces before the numbers. The clerk does that when he hurries. Pike took a slow breath. Clara tapped the gap on the forged strip with her fingernail. The cadence is wrong, she said. She said it for the hallway and for the yard. A stable boy came in with dust on his knees. He held a rag with metal inside. Found by Cutter's pens, he said. Dropped from a saddlebag. Looks like your plate. Clara fit the new plate to the first. The crooked serif matched. She set both beside the slate. Proof stood together. They stepped into the yard so all could hear. The preacher read the statement. Route named Mesquite Narrows. Decoy torch on ridge. Real wagon in the canyon. False order delivered. Payment by Cutter. He pinned the page to a post at eye height. War Chief Tiva read it and looked at Pike. We ride with you, he said. The creek keeps sounding small. We do not act on any new strip until it is read in public, Pike told the fence line. We will not seize Noconi. Clara crossed to the feed lane and crouched by the ruts. Inside a horseshoe print, a thin crescent bit the dust, not at the heel but at the toe. Missing nail, she said. She had seen the same bite behind the sheds. She went with May and the boy to Cutter's pens. A bay stood with 1 shoe bright and 3 nails shining, the 4th hole empty. The horse shifted and left the same crescent. May looked from the print to Clara. A match, she said. They carried the proof back and laid it with the plates and the slate. People did their own adding with their eyes. The afternoon cooled. The sounder tapped from the next post. Trail quiet east. Clara wrote it under the others. Quiet could be a blanket or a trap. At the table, the captain rolled his map. He pointed with a blunt finger. Ridge here, creek here, narrows here. He looked at each group. Pike and 2 soldiers to the ridge. Tiva and 2 riders to the creek. Clara, May, the preacher on the road with a lantern and the talking stick. No one fires first, he said. No one moves what they cannot explain before witnesses. Clara tied a second white strip to the hand line and showed it to May, to the girls, to Eli. 2 pulls. You lift any tarp, she said. 3 pulls, all guns go down. Keep voices low. Let proof talk. Eli set a coil on his shoulder. If they try to jam the pass, I will wedge the wheel, he said. A wagon that cannot move loses its plan. Noconi stood with care and touched the talking stick. Bring back the wagon, he told Clara, or make it empty. We will not carry a war for other men, she said. Not past our bell today. The sun leaned west. Long lines drew across the street. Pike checked the sky and his men. Tiva eased his horse. The preacher tucked a hymn and a tack in his pocket. May tied her hair back. Clara stood by the knot and breathed until her heart kept time with the sounder. Then she lifted the hand line and felt its small weight. It was only cotton, but promises pull hard when the moment comes. They stepped off their marks. The ridge took Pike. The creek took Tiva. The road took Clara and the 2 women and the preacher. The town stayed and watched with steady eyes. Evening gathered its color. A coyote cut a short call. The first star showed. Ahead, the narrows waited, narrow as a held breath. The last wagon was out there, and it did not want daylight. They left the town slowly, as if sound might break. Pike took the ridge with 2 soldiers. Tiva turned his horse to the creek, 2 riders behind him, hooves quiet in sand. Clara walked the road with May, the preacher, and 2 boarding house girls. The white hand line lay coiled over Clara's arm like a simple promise. The air smelled of dry grass and iron. The wire hummed above them. At the edge of town, Clara stopped at the school door. She set the lantern down and sat at the telegraph key. She sent public witnesses en route. Read orders in daylight only. She waited. The sounder answered, copy, hold daylight. She wrote the 2 lines on a strip and pinned it beside the slate that read 3 of 4. Then she checked the knot on the hand line again. May touched the second white strip and nodded. The preacher took the talking stick token and slipped it into his coat where a heart sits. Words will stand, he said. On the porch, a runner brought a fresh strip. Pike read it in the open before he rode. Vacate treaty position. Burn camp if resisted. Seize boy for security. The letters were sharp. The cadence was wrong. Clara pointed at the numbers, 2 spaces before each one like a limp in a march. Not ours, she said. We only move on words we can all hear. Pike's jaw held. He looked at Nakoni, then at Tiva, then at the captain. We hold daylight, he said aloud so the yard could own it. He handed the false strip to the preacher. The preacher pinned it under the true message. Clara stepped into the road again. Dust lay flat ahead, then stirred, then flattened again. The wagon was out there, choosing when to show. The ridge to their right grew dark first. A small flash touched it and died. They passed the last well and the last board fence. The ground turned to broken crust and scrub. The creek line to their left whispered as it slid around stones. Tiva's riders moved there like pieces of cloud. One lifted a hand. Clara lifted the hand line in answer and let it fall. May walked steadily with the lantern low. If they run a decoy, it will shine too clean, she said. Railmen trim wicks smooth. Trailmen leave them ragged, the preacher murmured a hymn and then stopped. No more prayers than we can carry, he said. The rest are steps. Beside them, the telegraph wire crossed the road. It sang a thin note like a saw in gentle hands. At one was, the hand line slipped. Clara retied the second strip in a square knot. She practiced the pulls, once for call, twice to reveal a wagon, 3 to lower guns. The girls repeated the count back without a stumble. She felt their steady like a plank underfoot. A rider came from the captain. They paused at the old cottonwood near the fork. Pike looked down from the ridge path. If the torch goes wide, we do not chase, he said. We meet at the narrows when the creek meets the road, Clara agreed. And anything new is read to the air. They stepped off the last road board and into the dust. The town fell behind like a page set down. Ahead, the narrows narrowed into a dark mouth. The wind came through it with a hollow voice. Somewhere metal ticked on a pin. They moved again, slower now. Tiva's shape kept pace along the creek, tall and quiet. At the bend, he met Clara's eyes across brush and water. He touched his bracer where a nick still showed. She lifted the handline an inch. That was enough between them. A weak lantern showed on the far ridge, too even, too neat. Pike raised a hand from the shadow and did not climb. He waited for daylight to be their judge. The small light blinked and held steady again. The road ahead stayed honest and dark. Clara listened for the loaded note, the thick hush that brass gives wood. It came at last, faint and stubborn from within the canyon. She could hear the slow roll of weight. The wagon was not far. She gathered her breath, counted 1, 2, 3, and felt the night settle on her shoulders like a shawl she had chosen. She would not cut the wire. She would not rush the ridge. She would not shout. She would pull twice when proof showed its face, and 3 if pride raised a gun. They went on toward the narrows, lantern low, words ready, daylight held in their hands like a length of rope they refused to drop. Behind them, the bells slept, but the knot remembered what morning had taught the town well. They reached Mesquite Narrows as the sky turned the color of cooled iron. Wind slid through the cut. The road pinched to wagon width between rock walls. High above, a stone clicked, then went still. Clara felt the sound more than she heard it. May lowered the lantern until the flame was a thumb. The preacher stood on Clara's left with the talking stick in his coat. The 2 boarding house girls held their breath. Clara set the hand line across her palm. Cotton knot promise. On the ridge to the right, a clean yellow glow bobbed, wick cut smooth, smoke straight. Rail hands, May breathed. Not trail. On the canyon floor, a duller light moved, dirty at the edges, the way a lantern looks when a teamster trims with a pocket knife. It paused, then carried on. A wheel creaked. Wood answered. The brass weight made a thick hush. Real wagon, Clara said. Pike's shadow formed above at the saddle. He lifted a hand but did not climb toward the clean light. Tiva's riders showed in pieces through willow and rock, their horses quiet as river stones. A bird burst from a sage bush, and the canyon settled again. Clara moved them to the side wall where the road widened by a hand. Here, she said. We stand where both sides can see us. The preacher set his boots on a flat stone and opened his Bible to the crease he knew. The clean light on the ridge blinked twice, slow and careless. It wanted watchers, Pike's hat brim turned toward it and then away. He stayed at his post. A mule snorted ahead. The dull lantern swung, one shape in the traces, one man walking. The wagon reached the tightest place and slowed to the labor a loaded cart makes when a road takes its last space from it. Clara raised her voice, not loud, only clear. "We are witnesses," she said to the dark. "We read orders in daylight. We lift tarps where the town can see. No one fires first." Something shifted high above, metal kissing stone. Pike's fingers curled, but he did not draw. Tiva lifted his hand, palm out. Peace. The wagon halted 10 paces off. The tarp ties lay square and proud. A trail tie wants speed, not pride. "Dressed for show," Clara whispered. May leaned close. "Wick is right. Knots are wrong." The girls edged to either corner of the road, eyes on Clara's hands. A voice rose from the seat. "Keep back," it called. "Army stores. Authorized transport." The tone had the snap of a man who likes to be obeyed. "Then read the order," the preacher answered. "Read it where all can hear," paper crackled. Clara could almost hear the false cadence before a number. She waited. The canyon waited with her. On the ridge, the clean lantern moved wide, fishing for a chase. Pike did not follow. The man found his voice again. "By authority of Fort Nolan?" He stopped. A hiss of whispering came from the far side of the wagon. "Daylight," Clara said. "Read the line about seizing a boy if you dare." Gravel pebbled as a shape tried to slip down a slope. Pike lifted his hand but kept his rifle down. Tiva's riders showed their empty faces. The wagon lurched half a foot, then stilled. Someone had put a stone under a wheel. Eli's voice came softly from the dark. "I can wedge it," he said, "if you pull." Clara felt the hand line and the small second strip. Not yet. "Words first." "Read," the preacher said again. The driver tried. "Vacate treaty," he stumbled. "Burn," he stopped. Clara lifted her chin. "We lift your tarp in 2 pulls if you do not finish that line." Wind moved between them. The canvas popped once. Above, metal nicked stone, a rifle finding rest. The moment leaned toward choice. Clara wrapped the hand line once around her wrist. She counted her breath, 1, 2, 3, and waited 1 beat more. The driver swallowed. "Stand clear," he said. "A stall." Clara looked to May. May nodded. The girls nodded. Eli sat his coil. The preacher opened his eyes. Tiva lifted his open hands. Pike planted both boots and kept his rifle low. The wagon waited. The ridge light winked and held. The sniper above set his cheek to the stock. The Narrows took 1 deep, invisible breath. From the dark beyond the wagon, a horse stamped and struck flint. A brief spark showed a face, cutter's hat and counting eyes. The spark died. The choice did not. Clara lifted the hand line higher. The night leaned in to hear what she would do next. She felt the town behind her like steady hands on her back, and the treaty ahead like a narrow bridge that could hold. Wind pressed against the rock walls like a steady hand. The canyon kept its echo to itself. Clara stood with the hand line ready and the second white strip bright against her wrist. She watched the dull lantern swing on the real wagon. She watched the clean lantern on the ridge try to pull its eyes away. She did not move. She let the road speak first. A rider slid from the shadow, breath hard, a paper held high. "Order," he called. "Urgent from the fort." "Read it where we all can hear," the preacher said. He stepped into the wagon light so his face was plain. The rider licked his lips and began. "Vacate treaty," he paused. "Terminate parley for—" He stalled again. Clara could hear the 2 soft spaces before a number, the same clumsy limp she had heard on the false strip in town. She said nothing. She only watched Pike. Pike stood above, body tilted toward the ridge torch, then away. A soldier at his side took 1 step to follow the clean light. Pike put a flat hand on the man's shoulder and left it there until the foot came back. He kept his rifle low. He made the torch wait for respect it would not get. Clara crouched and touched the dust near the wagon's track. Black grit clung to her fingers. It felt like chipped paint, not ash. She rubbed and smelled tar and oil. Fresh stencil flakes. She wiped her fingers on her skirt and stood. May slid the lantern sideways and squinted at the wagon's lamp. "Wick is jagged," she whispered. "Trail work," her mouth set. The ridge light is polished wrong. The rider tried again. Seize messenger, his voice faded. The preacher reached out and took the paper, not rough, just sure. He held it up, showed the wrong seal pressed, too shallow, and the ink that's still smudged. This goes under the true note, he said. He pinned the forgery to the rock with a tack. We will read it again in sunlight if it lasts that long. The wagon driver shifted on the seat, knuckles pale on the reins. The mule flicked one ear. Under the canvas, something slid, the dull push of brass against wood. The ties at the tarp's corner showed fresh beeswax rubbed hard to shed grit. Clara read the corners the way she read boys' slates. Dressed to pass, she thought. Not dressed for a road, high above the iron-kissed rock and then settled. Tiva's bracer moved, the nick from the fort yard catching a breath of light. He kept his hands open. He kept his horse still. Eli's whisper came from behind the wagon. Stone under the right wheel, he said. One kick and it jams. Clara shook her head once. Not yet, words first. She tapped the handline twice with one finger and felt the tug in her own arm as if she had already pulled. Patience held. A short glow flared on the ridge, clean, proud, inviting. Pike did not blink. He looked down into the cut where proof lived and waited for it to show its face. His restraint ran across the rock like a bar nailed into place. Clara stepped one pace forward. Read the line about the boy, she said to the driver. Say it so the canyon hears you. Her voice did not shake. It did not shout. It did not give a place for panic to sit. The driver wet his mouth. See, he coughed. See, he stopped. The mule stamped, annoyed at men's games. From the dark beyond the wagon, someone breathed, slow and angry. Clara saw for a blink a hat brim and a cheekbone. Cutter's eyes counted distance and courage. He wanted the ridge to pull Pike off. He wanted the driver's voice to trip the town. He wanted the shot to choose everyone. The preacher lifted the talking stick and spoke one sentence into the narrow air. We read orders in daylight. He did not add law. He did not add a threat. He let the sentence be a fence. Clara slid her palm along the handline. Cotton warmed under her skin. She looked at May. May adjusted the lantern low and nodded. The girls set their feet near the wagon corners, hands loose and ready. Eli shifted weight to his front leg, heel braced, rope ready to bite a spoke. Tiva changed nothing. He only breathed. Nokoni was not here, but Clara felt the boy's 3-breath sign in her chest. She took the count into herself and held it like a small stone she would not drop. The wire over the cut sang once, wind only, no message. But it sounded like a voice remembering itself. Clara smiled without showing teeth. The rider at the rock backed his horse a step. He had no more to say. His paper hung crooked from the tack, smudged and small. Forgery looks brave until it stands still. Clara pointed at the stains on her fingers. Fresh stencil, she said. On the road dust, not on a rail dock. She did not accuse. She noticed in public, so the night could not hide the fact. The driver's shoulders fell. His hands loosened. The reins sagged a little. A man who has built his fear on a lie feels it go soft. It makes his bones heavy. Metal scraped once above, sharper now, not testing. A scope or a peep sight, finding a line. The canyon's hush deepened into the kind that breaks. Clara lifted the handline halfway and held it there. 2 pulls would lift the tarp and name the wagon. 3 would lower every gun and keep the canyon from becoming a grave. She felt which one she wanted the moment. Not yet. One more sentence in the open. She turned to the driver and asked the plainest question left. Whose order did you carry? She said. Say the name. He closed his eyes. A small sound came from the dark where Cutter waited, like teeth touching. The driver opened his eyes again and looked at Clara as if he were tired of the weight in his own hands. He took a breath. The driver said the name like a man pulling a thorn. Cutter, he breathed. Orders from Cutter. Mesquite Narrows. Torch on the ridge. Wagon through the cut, metal snapped above them. The shot came hard and flat. Rock spat dust from the wall by Pike's hat. Tiva moved before the sound finished. He threw his arm across Pike's chest and shoved him back. The ball kissed Tiva's bracer and cut leather, not skin. Pike stumbled, caught himself, and stayed upright. His rifle stayed low. The ridge torch swung wide as if pleased. It wanted to chase. Pike did not give it respect. "Hold your fire!" he shouted. The word ran down the stone and came back smaller. Clara yanked the handline twice. The white strip flashed like a small flag in the dark. May and the two girls moved as one. Eli stepped from the shadow. May took the near corner of the tarp. Eli took the far. The girls caught the edge between them. "Lift," May said, not loud but sure. The canvas came up in a fast fold. Lantern light found brass in neat rows. Heads dull like coins after many hands. Army marks burned into crate tops. A false stencil plate lay near the driver's boot, its crooked serif winking like a lie that had lost breath. The driver dropped the reins and put both hands up. "I was told to haul," he said, voice thin. "I was told the fort wanted drill stock moved east." "By Cutter," Clara said. She did not make it a question. The preacher took one step past the light. A small tag hung from Cutter's coat where he tried to hide in the dark, a ledger slip used to tick loads as they changed hands. Wind flipped it once. The preacher reached, plucked it free, and read in the same strong tone he used for the treaty. 4 wagons, 3 to rail, 1 to narrows at dusk. Buyer's mark due south. Cutter's tally. He lifted it higher so the canyon could hear its own secret. Above them, the sniper shifted to find a second line. Clara felt the moment tilt. She wrapped the hand line again and pulled 3 times, clean and spaced, as they had sworn. The signal rolled along the rock like 3 soft knocks on a door everyone knew. Every rifle dipped. Tiva's riders opened both hands. Pike raised one palm to his men and pressed it down as if pushing a lid into place. "Guns low," he called. "Guns low." The ridge torch faltered. A shape there hesitated, then began to slide away, thinking it had drawn eyes. None followed. Clara stepped to the wheel and laid her fingers on the nearest crate. "Cartridges," she said. She turned the stencil plate so the crooked serif showed plain. "And this to make bad numbers look honest." Eli wedged the wheel with one hard kick so the wagon could not bolt. "You are staying for daylight," he told it, as if it were a mule with a mind. Cutter tried the slope. Rock hissed under his heel. Pike's soldier on the right shifted to block the path. Clara saw fear in Cutter's jaw, not the kind that runs, the kind that bargains. He looked at the ridge, then at the creek, counting where courage stood cheapest. He found no sail. "Step out," Pike said to the dark. "Hands open." Cutter did not move. The sniper above him made a small mistake. He breathed when he should have frozen. Tiva heard it. He lifted his arm just enough to show the nicked bracer to the starlight. An old wound turned into a signal. Pike looked up at that glint alone and saw the long line of metal. He did not shoot. He did not climb. "You have no cover," he said, steady as a fence post. "Stand and come down. Our guns are down, and the night is listening." The sniper's nerve broke first. A shadow slid. A boot skidded and knocked pebbles into the cut. The fort cook, who had come with Pike because courage cooks too, caught the ladder below and braced it with her shoulder. The sniper reached it, and the soldier at the bottom took his rifle, held it high so the marks were plain, and passed it to the preacher. The preacher read the fort stamp, then set the gun against the rock like a broom after sweeping dirt into view. Cutter tried to melt back. Eli's rope flicked and found his wrist. It was not a trick rope. It was a work rope. It bit and held. The soldier stepped in and took Cutter by the other arm. "Easy," Eli said. "We are not dragging. We are naming." Clara turned to the driver. "You will walk out with us," she said. "You will say again whose words you carried." The driver nodded like a man done with bad weight. May touched Clara's sleeve. "Look," she said. She pointed to the crate stencil. "Cartridges, drill wagon 4 of 4. The number sat like a stone in a clear stream. It showed how many there should have been. It admitted how many had not come home. The preacher lifted the ledger tag again. 4, he said. He wrote 4. He brought one to the narrows in the dark. Pike faced Cutter now that the rope had chosen for him. "You brought war under a cover and sold it as practice," he said. "You wrote orders you did not own." His voice stayed low. Low can be heavy. Cutter's mouth twisted. "The fort wants safety," he said. "I give them a reason to pay for it." "You sell fear and send the bill to the town," Clara said. Not today, Pike nodded once. He looked to Clara, then to Tiva, then to the crates. This wagon does not pass, he said. By treaty and by witness. Tiva eased his horse forward, slow as a man entering water. He stopped where all could see his empty hands. We do not take your rounds, he said to Pike. We do not want them pointed at anyone's house. Clara kept her palm on the crate. The brass inside felt like quiet coins in a church plate, wrong in this narrow place. We have a choice, she said, making the canyon hold its breath again. Dump the cartridges here into the dry well and soak the powder, or roll this back under guard and let it rot your books for a month. The driver swallowed. The girls looked at May. May looked at Pike. Pike looked at the preacher. The preacher looked at the talking stick and then at the rock and then at the people who would have to live with what they decided. From the ridge, the clean lantern went out. From the creek, night frogs started up like someone had unpinned their mouths. The wire above them sang once, a small wind-made note that still sounded like decide. Clara lifted the hand line so the white strip caught what little light there was. We will choose in the open, she said. Not in a ledger. Not under a tarp. Here, Pike stepped to Cutter. You will answer under guard, he said, and put a hand on the rope at the man's wrist. He did not yank. He held. Bring the wagon forward 1/2 turn, Clara told the driver. Then stop. He did. The wheel creaked over the wedge and settled again. The sound was final. Now, Clara said to the canyon and to the people in it, say what we do with this war meant for us. They reached Mesquite Narrows as the sky turned the color of cooled iron. Wind slid through the cut. The road pinched to wagon width between rock walls. High above, a stone clicked, then went still. Clara felt the sound more than she heard it. May lowered the lantern until the flame was a thumb. The preacher stood on Clara's left with the talking stick in his coat. The 2 boarding house girls held their breath. Clara set the handline across her palm. Cotton, knot, promise. On the ridge to the right, a clean yellow glow bobbed, wick cut smooth, smoke straight. Rail hands, May breathed. Not trail. On the canyon floor, a duller light moved, dirty at the edges, the way a lantern looks when a teamster trims with a pocket knife. It paused, then carried on. A wheel creaked. Wood answered. The brass weight made a thick hush. Real wagon, Clara said. Pike's shadow formed above at the saddle. He lifted a hand but did not climb toward the clean light. Tiva's riders showed in pieces through willow and rock, their horses quiet as river stones. A bird burst from a sage bush, and the canyon settled again. Clara moved them to the side wall where the road widened by a hand. Here, she said. We stand where both sides can see us. The preacher set his boots on a flat stone and opened his Bible to the crease he knew. The clean light on the ridge blinked twice, slow and careless. It wanted watchers. Pike's hat brim turned toward it and then away. He stayed at his post. A mule snorted ahead. The dull lantern swung. One shape in the traces. One man walking. The wagon reached the tightest place and slowed to the labor a loaded cart makes when a road takes its last space from it. Clara raised her voice, not loud, only clear. We are witnesses, she said to the dark. We read orders in daylight. We lift tarps where the town can see. No one fires first. Something shifted high above, metal kissing stone. Pike's fingers curled, but he did not draw. Tiva lifted his hand, palm out, peace. The wagon halted 10 paces off. The tarp ties lay square and proud. A trail tie wants speed, not pride. Dressed for show, Clara whispered. May leaned close. Wick is right. Knots are wrong. The girls edged to either corner of the road, eyes on Clara's hands. A voice rose from the seat. Keep back, it called. Army stores. Authorized transport. The tone had the snap of a man who likes to be obeyed, then read the order. The preacher answered. Read it where all can hear, Paper crackled. Clara could almost hear the false cadence before a number. She waited. The canyon waited with her. On the ridge, the clean lantern moved wide, fishing for a chase. Pike did not follow. The man found his voice again. By authority of Fort Nolan, he stopped. A hiss of whispering came from the far side of the wagon. Daylight, Clara said. Read the line about seizing a boy if you dare. Gravel pebbled as a shape tried to slip down a slope. Pike lifted his hand but kept his rifle down. Tiva's riders showed their empty faces. The wagon lurched half a foot, then stilled. Someone had put a stone under a wheel. Eli's voice came softly from the dark. "I can wedge it," he said, "if you pull." Clara felt the hand line and the small second strip. "Not yet. Words first." "Red," the preacher said again. The driver tried. "Vacate treaty," he stumbled. "Burn," he stopped. Clara lifted her chin. "We lift your tarp in 2 pulls if you do not finish that line." Wind moved between them. The canvas popped once. Above, metal nicked stone, a rifle finding rest. The moment leaned toward choice. Clara wrapped the hand line once around her wrist. She counted her breath 1, 2, 3, and waited 1 beat more. The driver swallowed. "Stand clear," he said. "A stall." Clara looked to May. May nodded. The girls nodded. Eli set his coil. The preacher opened his eyes. Tiva lifted his open hands. Pike planted both boots and kept his rifle low. The wagon waited. The ridge light winked and held. The sniper above set his cheek to the stock. The Narrows took 1 deep, invisible breath. From the dark beyond the wagon, a horse stamped and struck flint. A brief spark showed a face, Cutter's hat, and counting eyes. The spark died. The choice did not. Clara lifted the hand line higher. The knight leaned in to hear what she would do next. She felt the town behind her like steady hands on her back, and the treaty ahead like a narrow bridge that could hold. Silence held for 1 long beat, then another. Clara kept her palm on the crate and asked again, plain as a nail. "What do we do with this war?" The driver lowered his eyes. May set the lantern on the stone so light fell on the brass and her hands. The preacher took the talking stick from his coat and lifted it where all could see. "Whoever holds this speaks so all must hear," he said, and offered it first to Pike. Pike did not take it. He pointed to Clara. She held the stick with a steady hand. "2 choices," she said. "Dump the cartridges into the dry well here and drown the powder, or roll the wagon back under heavy guard and let fear ride with us all the way home. We choose in the open. Now." A murmur traveled the rock. Tiva stepped forward, palms still empty. "My riders will bring water," he said. "We will not carry your rounds. We will help you end them." He turned and whistled once. 2 riders slid to the creek with buckets. The fort cook planted her feet by the wheel. "Powder hates water," she said. "Brass likes a rinse. We can deprime and soak. It is work, not magic." May took the talking stick from Clara and spoke. "I keep a house. I know what rots when you hide it and what cleans when you wash it. I vote we dump." She handed the stick to Eli. Eli grinned without joy. A wagon jammed at the pass is a lesson. A wagon emptied at the pass is a law. He held the stick toward the driver. The driver swallowed. "I was paid to haul," he said. "I was not paid to start a war." He nodded to the well mouth. "Dump it." Clara looked at Pike. He met Tiva's eyes and then hers. He spoke for all to hear. "We unload it here." He set his hand on Cutter's rope and gave the smallest tug. "Under witness," the canyon breathed out. Tiva's riders returned with buckets. The girls fetched more from the creek. The cook pulled a tool from her apron, brisk and sure. "Thumb the primers, boys," she said to the soldiers, "and drop them in the bucket. Brass in the pile, powder for the bath." Pike nodded. "Do it carefully. Count out loud." The soldier nearest the wagon began. 1, 2, 3. And the count rolled through the crew like a hum. The preacher echoed each 10 with a firm 10, so the canyon kept its own tally. Clara backed the mule 2 steps and set the brake. Eli hauled the tarp aside and braced the tailgate. May tied her hair tighter. The girls set their feet and passed cartridges hand to hand, smooth as shelling peas, steady as prayer. Tiva's riders poured water into the well again and again until the dark below sloshed and sang. Powder hit the pool and folded into gray silt that smelled sharp and then tired. Pike faced Cutter. "Name your buyer," he said. Cutter kept his jaw stiff. The cook looked up from her work. "Men who hide behind boys and ledgers always fold when their paper gets wet." Cutter's mouth warped. He named a ranch buyer to the south and a rail agent beyond. The preacher wrote the names on a strip and read them into the air so the night would keep them. Above, the wire sang a small wind note. Clara walked to the road pole and tapped the sleeve by habit. "We will send after," she said. "For now, we finish with our hands." They worked. Brass clinked into a dry pile. Primers ticked into a bucket like small insects. Powder turned to slurry and ran down into the stone. The count went past 100, then 2. The driver's breath steadied. The girl's hands turned black, then clean, then black again. May kept the lantern low. The cook kept the tempo. "Mind your fingers. Mind your pride." Tiva held the bucket for a soldier whose hands shook. "Steady," he said gently. "Steady as strength." Pike watched with his rifle still low. The ridge torch did not come back. The sniper sat on the ground like a man whose legs had forgotten their job. When the last crate lay empty, the canyon felt wider. The tailgate thumped shut on air. The brass pile shone dully like a field of spent moons. The bucket of primers sat silent. The well glimmered with a scum of quiet powder that could not burn. The preacher lifted the talking stick again. "We witnessed it," he said. "We named it. We ended it here." He handed the stick to Pike. Pike took it finally. His voice had no iron filings in it now. "No hostages," he said. "No chains. Joint patrols. Shared water. Wire protected." He looked to Tiva. "We keep the treaty, not because paper says so, but because our hands just did." Tiva bowed his head once. Clara coiled the hand line and felt the ache in her fingers. It was the good kind. She turned to the driver. "You will roll this empty wagon with us," she said. "You will tell in daylight what you told here." The driver nodded. Clara faced Cutter. "You sold fear as work," she said. "Tonight you saw real work." Cutter looked away. Pike tied Cutter to the wagon seat, not cruelly. "You ride where eyes can see," he said. "If you try to slip, the rope will speak for you." They heaved the empty crates back onto the bed. Eli kicked the wedge loose. The wheel creaked forward. The mule flicked an ear and leaned into the traces, surprised by how easy the load had become. The road felt different under empty weight. Clara walked beside the wheel with her palm on the wood. May took the lantern. The girls carried the bucket of dull primers between them. The cook shouldered the tool like a banner. The preacher tucked the ledger tag in his coat and kept pace. Tiva rode on Clara's left, close but not touching. Their shadows walked together in the narrow light. Pike moved on her right, quiet and changed. When they reached the mouth of the narrows, Clara paused and looked back. The well shone faintly in the dark, full of a war that would not burn. She did not smile. She did not cry. She breathed once and let it be enough. "Home," she said. "Daylight will finish the rest." They brought the empty wagon back under a sky like clean tin. Dawn drew a thin silver line, and the white knot on the school bell caught it first. The mule's hooves sounded lighter. Primers clinked in a bucket between the girls. Powder slept in the stone well. Cutter rode tied to the seat, rope speaking for him whenever pride tried to. At the gate, the town waited. People saw the empty bed, Cutter's wrists, the bucket, the tool in the cook's hand, the driver's tired face. Clara let the wagon roll into the yard. She set her palm on the pole and felt the wire hum, small and friendly. The captain came with his ledger. Pike lifted a hand for stillness. Tiva halted at Clara's shoulder, easy and calm. "We ended it in the narrows," Pike said. "Cartridges emptied. Powder soaked. False order named." The preacher stood on a stool. He read the buyer to the south and the rail agent beyond. He read the count spoken in the canyon until the last shell dropped. The captain wrote each word. When he finished, he looked at Cutter. "You wrote against your own," he said. "You sold fear to people who had learned better." He turned to Pike. "Guard the fort cell." Soldiers led Cutter away where every face could see. Clara stepped to the driver. "You kept your second promise," she said. He nodded. "I will tell it again," he said, in the square. So he did at the treaty table. The canyon, the torch, the load, the moment when the tarp lifted. He said Cutter without hiding. The town did not shout. It listened like a field drinks a slow rain. Children lined the fence. Nokoni sat near the school door with the surgeon. He lifted 3 fingers to Clara, she lifted 3 back. He watched the sounder while the captain sent a report to the next post. Copy, the wire answered. Hold terms. Proceed. Clara set the big slate on the step. She wrote the class oath, truth in daylight or not at all. Then the new line, and when it hides, we go and find it. The children spoke both lines softly together. Jonas carved the words into cedar. Lila drew a bell rope with a white knot. Nokoni stood with care and came inside. Clara guided his hand to the key and showed him the letters for his name. He sent them slow and proud, then folded the strip. A message can walk without feet, he said. Outside, the captain laid the treaty down again. Pike stood beside him, changed. Tiva stepped forward with empty hands. The preacher lifted the talking stick so all could see it pass. The captain spoke plainly. No hostages. No forced disarmament. Joint patrols. Shared water. Wire protected. Theft was tried in public. These are the words we keep. Clara went to the school desk. She laid the talking stick beside the eagle feather. She did not lock it. She placed the dusk strip there, too. Public witnesses en route. Read orders in daylight only. She closed the drawer. By afternoon, the patrols rode to mend fences and count posts. Men climbed with coils for the line. Women boiled coffee and carried bread. The cook laughed once. Pike and Tiva spoke under the bell rope without a hard word. Eli fixed a hinge and whistled. Clara swept the floor and watched dust rise and fall. She set the small slate for the oath. She cut the string for readers and tied neat bows. When the sun leaned low, she stepped outside. The wire gave a steady note. The white knot at the rope's throat lifted once, then lay down again. The bell did not need to ring. It only needed to be ready. Clara set her hand on the rope like a friend's shoulder and thanked it without words. The preacher joined her. Will they remember? He asked. They will, she said. We tied the memory so that they can touch it. Nokoni held up the strip with his name. I want to send for my father, he said. You already did, Clara said. He read your face when the guns went down. Evening lowered into soft blue. The town breathed like a person at rest. The treaty no longer sat on a table. It walked on its feet. Clara looked at the place where fear had stood and looked bigger than it was. It looked smaller now. Daylight does that. She smiled at the neighbors and the riders by the creek. The last light touched the rope and warmed the knot. The wire hummed a calm line. Clara stood with it until the first star showed. Then she locked the school and went home the short way. Ready for tomorrow's work, ordinary and holy anyway. If this ending felt earned, tap like so more people see it. Subscribe to the channel and share it with a friend who loves Western romance. Tell me in the comments, would you dump the cartridges or haul them back under guard?